Jake's shift had just begun when he heard the unsettling noise coming from the abandoned cell block. Despite warnings from his colleagues, his curiosity got the better of him. With a flashlight in hand, he made his way down the dimly lit corridor, the eerie silence broken only by the distant hum of fluorescent lights. As Jake stepped into the old cell block, a chilling cold enveloped him. The air felt heavy, and each step echoed ominously. He shone his flashlight around, the beam cutting through the darkness, revealing rusted bars and forgotten cells. Shadows danced on the walls, making him feel like he was being watched. Whispers seemed to follow him, growing louder with each step. Jake paused in front of a particular cell that seemed darker than the rest. The number 13 was etched into the door, barely visible under layers of dust and grime. He pushed the door open, the creak of the hinges sending a shiver down his spine. Inside, old prison records were scattered across the floor, as if someone had gone through them in a hurry. Jake picked up a file, blowing off the dust to reveal the name of an inmate who had died under mysterious circumstances. The eerie feeling intensified, and a sudden draft caused the door to slam shut behind him, trapping him inside. Panic surged through Jake as he tugged at the door, but it wouldn't budge. His flashlight flickered, and he could hear the faint sound of chains rattling behind him. Turning slowly, he felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up as he faced the darkness. Inside the cell, Jake's heart raced as he turned to face the darkness. The sound of chains grew louder, accompanied by faint whispers. He shone his flashlight around, the beam finally landing on a ghostly figure of the deceased inmate. The apparition stared at him with hollow eyes, its translucent form shimmering in the dim light. The ghost began to speak, its voice a low, mournful whisper. "Help me," it pleaded, revealing a story of injustice and wrongful death. Jake felt a mixture of fear and pity as he listened, trying to make sense of the ghost's fragmented words. Suddenly, the temperature in the cell dropped further, and Jake felt an icy hand on his shoulder. He jumped, nearly dropping his flashlight. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows that seemed to move on their own. Jake knew he had to escape, but the door remained stubbornly shut. Desperation setting in, Jake backed against the wall, his mind racing. The ghost presence grew stronger, and Jake realized that the spirit wasn't malevolent. It was seeking justice. Summoning his courage, he spoke to the ghost, promising to help uncover the truth and clear the inmate's name. At that moment, the cell door creaked open on its own. Jake stumbled out, breathing heavily. He hurried back to the guard station, his mind reeling from the encounter. Determined to bring peace to the tormented spirit, Jake knew he had to investigate the inmate's story further. Back at the guard station, Jake couldn't shake off the chilling encounter. Determined to help the restless spirit, he delved into the prison's archives. Hours passed as he sifted through old files and records, searching for any information about the inmate. Finally, he found a newspaper clipping detailing the inmate's tragic story. A man wrongly accused and convicted of a crime he didn't commit. Armed with this newfound knowledge, Jake decided to revisit the haunted cell block. This time, he brought along the evidence he had gathered. As he approached cell 13, the temperature dropped again, and the ghostly figure appeared, more visible than before. Jake showed the ghost the newspaper clipping, explaining that he was working to clear the inmate's name. The ghost seemed to react, its form becoming less menacing and more sorrowful. It pointed to a hidden compartment in the cell, previously unnoticed by Jake. Inside, Jake found letters and documents that further proved the inmate's innocence. As Jake read the letters, he felt the ghost's presence intensify. The spirit seemed to be guiding him, showing him exactly what he needed to clear the inmate's name. With renewed determination, Jake knew he had to present this evidence to the authorities. Jake left the cell block, clutching the documents. The prison felt less ominous now, as if acknowledging his efforts to right a wrong. He could sense that he was on the right path, and he was determined to bring justice to the unjustly condemned soul. Jake gathered all the evidence and presented it to the prison authorities. Skeptical at first, they reluctantly agreed to reopen the case. As the investigation progressed, more inconsistencies and overlooked details emerged, painting a clear picture of the inmate's innocence. Jake worked tirelessly, determined to see the ghost find peace. He spent hours cross-referencing the documents, meeting with lawyers, and pushing for justice. His colleagues noticed his dedication, and a few even joined his cause, moved by his unwavering resolve. Finally, the day came when the court officially exonerated the inmate. Jake felt a profound sense of relief and accomplishment. That night, he returned to the abandoned cell block one last time, holding the exoneration papers. Inside cell 13, the atmosphere was different, calmer, almost peaceful. The ghostly figure appeared once more, but this time it looked less tormented. Jake held up the papers, showing the ghost that justice had been served. The spirit's form shimmered, and for the first time, Jake saw a hint of a smile. The temperature in the cell gradually warmed, and the oppressive heaviness lifted. The ghost began to fade, its presence no longer needed in the realm of the living. As the spirit disappeared, Jake felt a wave of tranquility wash over him. Jake left the cell block, knowing he had done the right thing. The prison felt different now, less haunted, more at peace. He walked back to the guard station, ready to share the news with his colleagues. The spirit had finally found rest, and so had Jake. With the exoneration of the inmate, the prison buzzed with a renewed sense of justice. Jake's efforts had not only brought peace to a tormented soul, but had also inspired his colleagues. They began to look at their work differently, understanding the impact they could have on the lives connected to the prison's history. That evening, Jake returned to cell block 13 one last time. The once ominous corridor now felt serene. He stood in the cell where he had first encountered the ghost, reflecting on the journey. The eerie whispers and cold drafts were gone, replaced by a calm silence. Jake's superiors acknowledged his dedication and the significance of his discovery. He received commendations, but more importantly, he earned the respect of his peers. The old cell block was no longer a place of fear, but a symbol of redemption. Determined to honor the memory of the wrongly accused inmate, Jake proposed a memorial in the prison's courtyard. It was a simple plaque bearing the inmate's name and a brief account of his story. The memorial served as a reminder of the importance of justice and the human stories within the prison walls. As weeks passed, Jake noticed a change in the prison's atmosphere. The guards seemed more vigilant, the inmates more hopeful. The story of the haunted cell block became a legend, passed down to new recruits as a lesson in empathy and duty. Jake knew his work had made a difference, not just for the spirit he helped, but for everyone who worked in the prison. He walked the corridors with a lighter heart, knowing he had brought light to a place long shrouded in darkness. Maria's first night shift in the old watchtower was unsettling. The structure loomed over the prison yard, casting long shadows under the pale moonlight. As she climbed the creaky wooden stairs to the top, her unease grew with each step. The watchtower had a reputation for being eerie, but Maria dismissed it as mere superstition. At the top, Maria settled into the small, cramped room with windows on all sides. She scanned the yard below, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. Suddenly, a strange, flickering light caught her eye in the distance. She grabbed her binoculars, but the light vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Maria shrugged it off, attributing it to her tired mind playing tricks. She continued her watch, but the uneasy feeling persisted. Her radio crackled to life with static, and faint, indistinguishable whispers sent a chill down her spine. She tried calling for backup, but the radio cut out, leaving her in silence. Symbols began to appear on the watchtower walls, etched as if by an invisible hand. Maria's heart raced as she realized these were no ordinary markings. They seemed ancient and sinister. She felt a presence, unseen but palpable, watching her every move. Deciding she needed to get out, Maria hurriedly descended the stairs. The sound of footsteps echoed behind her, matching her pace. Panic set in as she reached the bottom and bolted for the main building, determined to find answers to the mysterious occurrences. Maria's heart pounded as she reached the main building, her breath coming in short gasps. She dashed to the nearest security camera station, her hands trembling as she rewound the footage. Her eyes widened as she watched the video, seeing herself climbing down the watchtower with a shadowy figure trailing her every step. Determined to confront whatever was haunting her, Maria grabbed a flashlight and a crucifix from the security office. She steeled herself and headed back to the watchtower. Each step up the creaky stairs felt heavier, the air thick with tension. At the top, she began to recite a prayer, hoping to drive away the entity. The shadowy figure appeared again, but this time it seemed less menacing. Maria realized the figure was trying to communicate something important. She followed its movements closely, trying to understand its message. The figure led her to a corner of the watchtower where the floorboards seemed out of place. With trembling hands, Maria pried them open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside, she found an old journal covered in dust and cobwebs. As she opened the journal, the shadowy figure hovered nearby, its presence guiding her. The journal belonged to a previous guard and detailed similar encounters with the figure. It also mentioned a buried secret that could explain the hauntings. Maria knew she had to uncover the truth hidden within these pages. The entity was not there to harm her, but to reveal the secrets of the past. Maria's fingers trembled as she turned the brittle pages of the old journal. The guard's entries detailed numerous encounters with the shadowy figure, each more chilling than the last. The guard wrote about the figure guiding him to uncover corruption and hidden contraband among the prison staff. Maria's eyes widened as she read about a stash of illegal items hidden within the watchtower. Determined to find it, she followed the journal's instructions. She moved cautiously, her flashlight illuminating the dusty corners of the room. The shadowy figure watched silently, its presence a mix of urgency and expectation. After several minutes of searching, Maria found a loose floorboard. She pried it open, revealing a hidden cache. Inside were weapons, drugs, and other contraband, evidence of a long-standing corruption ring within the prison. Maria felt a mix of triumph and fear. She had uncovered a significant secret, but exposing it could put her in danger. She carefully documented everything with her phone, taking pictures of the items and the journal pages. The shadowy figure moved closer, its form becoming clearer. Maria realized it was the spirit of the former guard who had been trying to reveal the truth for years. The ghost seemed to nod in approval, urging her to take the next step. With the evidence in hand, Maria knew she had to act. She couldn't let this corruption continue. She took a deep breath and prepared to report her findings to the prison authorities, hoping they would take her seriously. Maria took a deep breath and headed to the warden's office, clutching the journal and her phone. Her heart pounded as she knocked on the door. The warden, a stern man with a reputation for no nonsense, looked up in surprise as she entered. "Sir, I need to show you something," Maria said, her voice steady despite her nerves. She laid out the journal and the photos, explaining the haunting, the symbols, and the hidden contraband. The warden's expression shifted from skepticism to concern as he reviewed the evidence. "This is serious," he muttered, picking up the phone to call in a trusted investigator. Maria felt a weight lift off her shoulders as she realized the warden believed her. That night, an investigation team combed through the watchtower, uncovering even more hidden compartments filled with illicit goods. Maria watched from a distance, the shadowy figure standing beside her. She sensed a silent gratitude emanating from the ghost. The next morning, the prison was abuzz with the news. Several corrupt guards were arrested, and new security measures were put in place. Maria's bravery had not only exposed the corruption, but also brought a sense of justice and integrity back to the institution. As she climbed the watchtower one last time, Maria felt the atmosphere had changed. The oppressive weight was gone, replaced by a sense of peace. The shadowy figure appeared, more solid and serene than before. It nodded at her before slowly fading away, its purpose fulfilled. Maria knew she had made a difference. The watchtower, once a place of terror, was now a symbol of courage and justice. With the investigation complete and the corrupt guards arrested, the prison settled into a new routine. Maria's actions had sparked a wave of changes, restoring integrity to the institution. She received commendations for her bravery and was respected by her colleagues for uncovering the truth. One evening, Maria returned to the watchtower, feeling a sense of closure. The air was no longer heavy with fear, but filled with a calm serenity. She climbed the stairs, each step lighter than before. At the top, she gazed out over the prison yard, reflecting on the events that had transpired. The shadowy figure appeared one last time, its form now almost human. Maria felt a deep connection to the spirit, understanding its struggles and pain. The figure raised a hand in a gesture of farewell, a silent thank you for freeing it from its torment. As the ghost faded into the night, Maria knew she had done the right thing. The watchtower, once a place of dread, was now a symbol of courage and justice. She took a moment to appreciate the peaceful silence, knowing the spirit had found rest. Word of Maria's bravery spread, inspiring others to stand up against corruption. The prison became a safer place, and the staff worked together to maintain the integrity Maria had fought to restore. Maria continued her duties with a renewed sense of purpose. She knew that even in the darkest places, there was a chance to make things right. The watchtower, with its history of terror, had become a beacon of hope and redemption. Tom's first night shift in the oldest wing of the prison began with an unsettling feeling. The wing had a notorious history, filled with stories of unexplained incidents and eerie occurrences. As he patrolled the dark, narrow halls, the sound of distant screams and wails echoed through the air, sending shivers down his spine. He stumbled upon a locked door that wasn't on the prison's blueprints. Intrigued, Tom used his keys to unlock it, stepping into a forgotten corridor covered in dust and cobwebs. The air was thick with a sense of dread, and the faint glow of his flashlight barely pierced the darkness. Tom moved cautiously, his footsteps echoing through the desolate passage. The corridor was lined with old, rusted cells, their bars twisted and broken. He noticed strange markings on the walls and floor, symbols that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. As he ventured deeper, Tom's flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance on their own. He heard a voice whispering his name, faint but unmistakable. He turned quickly, shining his light around, but saw nothing. Panic began to set in, but he forced himself to remain calm. Determined to find the source of the whispering, Tom pressed on, his heart pounding in his chest. He came across a particularly decrepit cell with more of the strange symbols. His flashlight flickered again, and this time, he saw the outline of a figure in the darkness, just beyond the reach of the light. Tom's heart raced as he stared at the shadowy figure. The figure remained still, its presence almost palpable. Summoning his courage, Tom stepped closer, shining his flashlight directly at it. The figure vanished, leaving behind an eerie silence. Tom felt an intense urge to leave, but knew he needed answers. He turned his attention to the strange symbols covering the cell's walls. As he inspected them, he noticed a loose brick in the corner. With some effort, he pried it open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside, Tom found an old, tattered diary. The pages were yellowed and brittle, filled with hastily scrawled entries. The diary belonged to a former inmate who practiced dark rituals, attempting to curse the prison and its inhabitants. The entries detailed the inmate's descent into madness and his belief that the curse would give him power over those who wronged him. As Tom read, the whispering voice returned, louder and more urgent. He felt a sudden, invisible force pushing him. Objects around the cell began to move on their own, and the air grew colder. Tom realized that the curse was still active and that the entity was growing stronger. Desperate to escape, Tom clutched the diary and ran towards the door, but it slammed shut before he could reach it. The whispering grew into a cacophony, and Tom knew he had to break the curse to survive. He frantically searched the diary for instructions, finding a ritual that could lift the curse. Tom's hands trembled as he flipped through the diary, searching for the ritual to lift the curse. The pages detailed the required items and incantations. Determined to escape, he gathered the necessary items from around the cursed wing: a piece of chalk, a candle, and a small vial of salt. He returned to the cell and quickly drew the ritual symbols on the floor. His movements hurried and precise. The whispering grew louder, the shadows more menacing. Tom lit the candle and placed it at the center of the drawn symbols, feeling the oppressive force closing in around him. Taking a deep breath, Tom began to recite the incantations from the diary. His voice shook, but he pressed on, determined to see it through. The air grew colder, and the shadows seemed to writhe in agony. Objects flew around the cell, crashing into the walls, but Tom remained focused. As he continued the ritual, the ghostly figure reappeared, its form more defined and hostile. The entity lashed out, but the symbols and incantations seemed to hold it at bay. Tom felt the force trying to break his concentration, but he knew he couldn't stop. With a final desperate shout, Tom completed the ritual. The candle's flame flared brightly before extinguishing, and the oppressive force vanished. The air grew warm, and the shadows receded. The door to the cell creaked open, and Tom knew the curse had been lifted. Exhausted, but relieved, Tom left the cursed wing, clutching the diary as a reminder of the ordeal he had survived. Tom staggered out of the cursed wing, the diary clutched tightly in his hands. The oppressive weight that had haunted the corridor was gone, replaced by an eerie calm. He made his way to the guard station, where his colleagues noticed his disheveled appearance and wide-eyed expression. "Tom, what happened?" one of them asked, concern etched on his face. Tom recounted his terrifying experience, showing them the diary and explaining the curse. Skeptical at first, their expressions changed as he detailed the events and the items he had found. The markings, the ritual, the shadowy figure, all of it painted a chilling picture. Determined to ensure the prison's safety, Tom and his colleagues decided to investigate the cursed wing further. They meticulously searched each cell, documenting any strange symbols or hidden compartments. The diary's revelations led them to more evidence of the dark rituals performed by the inmate. As the investigation progressed, Tom felt a sense of closure. The prison authorities took his findings seriously, implementing new security measures to prevent any further occurrences. The cursed wing was sealed off, with plans to transform it into a place of remembrance and reflection. Word of Tom's bravery spread, earning him respect and admiration from his peers. He was commended for his courage and quick thinking, which had not only saved his life, but also protected others from the malevolent forces that had lurked within the prison walls. Tom continued his duties with a renewed sense of purpose. He knew he had faced true darkness and emerged victorious. The cursed wing, once a place of fear, had become a testament to his resilience and determination. With the cursed wing sealed off and the prison secure, Tom felt a sense of peace for the first time in weeks. His bravery had not only dispelled the malevolent presence, but also brought about positive changes within the prison. The old wing, now a place of remembrance, stood as a silent testament to the dark past and the courage it took to confront it. One evening, Tom decided to visit the memorial in the old wing. As he stood in front of the plaque dedicated to those who had suffered unjustly, he felt a wave of solemnity wash over him. The once eerie corridor now held a quiet reverence, its walls echoing the stories of redemption and justice. Tom's encounter had changed him. He had faced the unknown and emerged stronger, more resolute in his duty to protect and serve. His colleagues, inspired by his example, began to approach their work with a renewed sense of vigilance and empathy. The prison, once a place of dread, was gradually transforming into a beacon of hope and integrity. As he left the memorial, Tom couldn't help but glance back at the sealed door to the cursed wing. The fear and darkness that once haunted him were now memories, replaced by the light of truth and justice. He knew that while the shadows of the past could never be completely erased, they could be confronted and overcome. Tom returned to his post, his steps confident and his heart lighter. The haunted prison had become a place of redemption, thanks to his courage and determination. He was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that he had the strength to face them.